Om Stapakaya Dharmasya Sarvadharma Swarupine Stapakaya Dharmasya Sarvadharma Swarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishna Te Namaha Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Mritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us bow down to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God incarnate. Let us pray to Him to lead us from the unreal to the real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. Today's topic, the excellence of straightforwardness. Some of these qualities we need to cultivate in order to achieve progress in our spiritual life. So, it is very important to note what are the essential qualities required so that one could get success in the spiritual path. So in order to realize the truth, one needs to give good attention towards practicing these qualities. And one of the most important quality which I am dealing with in today's topic is straightforwardness. If a man is well achieved in this quality, if he is well established in the quality of straightforwardness, God is sure to come towards him. So, what is the straightforwardness? We need to know that. Straightforwardness really means one should be free from all complexities. He should be completely simple and sincere in what he is thinking and what he is talking and what he is doing. So there must be a perfect coordination in his actions, in his behavior, in his movements, in his association with people. So, if a person is remarkably simple and free from deceiving anybody, he is said to be straightforward. The tendency to deceive pushes one to avoid straight path. It's very easy to fall in prey to the bad qualities, but then one has to suffer immensely because of that. A person who thinks he is very clever and thinks that he might deceive anybody, he is like the larva prisoner in his own cocoon. Now, straightforwardness in Sanskrit, it is called arjavam. Arjavam. It is one of the essential virtues to be cultivated by those who practice spirituality. Those who practice Vedanta, it is very important that one should be well established in the quality of straightforwardness. In his 20-point program, in the chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna lists this special quality, arjavam, straightforwardness, as the fifth excellence, which is basic to all the other excellences. Modesty, for example, called as amanitvam in Sanskrit, blossoms only on the trunk of uprightness. A pose of humility that conceals crookedness within is a menace to oneself and the world. To take an example, if you study the character of Shakuni in Mahabharata, how he is a classic example of cunningness, crookedness. Because of his tremendous deceiving nature, Dharmaraj, the chief of the Pandavas, was defeated in the game of dice when he was playing with Duryodhana, the chief of the Kauravas. The whole Mahabharata story was displayed as a dangerous consequence of the part played by crooked and cunning Shakuni. Modesty, veiling crookedness, is self-defeating. Likewise, straightforwardness goes hand in hand with unostentatiousness, called adambhitvam, unostentatiousness. The upright person has no need to show off others. Take him at his word. The straight person takes care not to do any harm or violence to other fellow beings. Arjava expresses itself in ahimsa, that is non-violence. Forbearance, also called kshanti, is also characteristic of the upright. If one follows this quality of uprightness, he follows naturally the other good qualities in himself. So, being himself straightforward, he understands the weakness of others which push them to deviate from the right path. And this understanding enables him to look on their lapses with charity. These five virtues, the five excellences, given by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, amanitvam, adhambitvam, ahimsa, kshantihi, arjavam. These are the five: the humility, modesty, non-violence, forbearance, and uprightness. These form a syndrome, each interlinked with and interacting on the others. So how much Lord Krishna was emphatic about mentioning these qualities. Develop these, then you really achieve the goal of realizing God. Without cultivating these qualities, your aspiration to realize God remains a dream. So one has to pay utmost attention to develop these qualities in oneself. Now, what is the nature of this fundamental excellence of Arjava? Sri Ramakrishna explains it by saying that one should make the heart, the mouth, and the hand unitive. There must be perfect and coordinated link between these three. That means one should not think one thing, say another, and do something totally different. There should be an utter integrity of thought, word, and deed. In fact, this is the implication of the term individual, which means undivided. Individual means undivided. The real individual does not suffer from a multiple personality. He is an unfragmented unity which manifests itself homogeneously and harmoniously through intellect, will, and action. It is this straightforwardness that the Bhagavad Gita calls it as Vyavasayatmika Buddhihi. That means the resolute intelligence. In contrast to it are the many branched thoughts and conduct of the irresolute, which the Lord condemns in no uncertain terms. The straight is simple, the straight is natural. If you have studied Newton's law, it reminds us that a body continues to move in a straight line unless acted upon by a force. We deviate from the natural straight path of life because of the group of distracting forces, namely Kama, Krodha, Lopa, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. That is craving, anger, miserliness, infatuation, pride, and jealousy. They are all exposed enemies of the human beings. It is because of these enemies we are constantly suffering. Because we are constantly under attack by these qualities, negative forces, craving, anger, miserliness, infatuation, pride, and jealousy. Now these tiger waves erode the straight edge of personality. Because we are constantly being attacked by these forces, the result would be we become distorted and misshapen, caught in their grip. The simplicity and naturalness of our existence vanishes, and we find like a misery go round. Not merry-go-round, misery go round. Their impact can be avoided only by persistent determination to keep straight. The Upanishads points out, punyena punyam, papena papam. God is to be achieved by remaining good, doing good and be good. Evil grows when one permits oneself to lapse into evil. To keep straight, we have to resolve to be straight. That's very important. That means it's a conscious moving life. It's a constant attention. And this is possible only if we develop sensitivity. We are sensitive for so many things, but not this thing. A warning bell should ring in our brain every time we detect the least deviation from the straight path. So, that means if you notice crookedness, even in the slightest way, it has to be nipped in the bud. You should not allow it to grow and then it becomes impossible for you to control. Indeed, one can check whether one is progressing spiritually or not by examining dispassionately how far he is able to maintain straightness in his everyday affairs. That means every moment of your life you should be straightforward. That is what is meant. That is the great spiritual quality. If you develop this one quality, you will be developing all the other spiritual qualities. The fact is that these entrapping temptations which generally people come across in the world present themselves at first in quite a pleasant garb, like the golden deer that lured Sita to her epic catastrophe. These tempting desires, they look enchanting in the beginning, but lead the people down the slippery slope to utter ruin. When people first indulge in compromising and prevaricating, it looks innocent and amusing, but the sugar coating does not last, and finally people have to swallow the bitter pill. It is a non-realization of the falsity of these attractions that leads to self-ruination. People imagine that a little relaxation of principles is harmless and provides spice to existence. We have seen many people telling very frequently, when we tell them to take up spiritual path and follow some spiritual ideas in your life, first of all they are very casual about it. They say, well, let me enjoy the world for a while. That means he wants to pass through the pleasures of this world before he actually wants to practice spirituality. Let alone youngsters, even the old people, the parents who are burning themselves in the scorching influence of the samsara, even they provoke their children to take up the life as normally all other worldly people do. They won't encourage them to take up spiritual path. In fact, by taking spiritual path, one loses nothing. By taking the worldly path, one loses everything. But how few people understand these things. They don't understand that the relaxation once begun does not usually stop. At every stage they keep saying the little more deviation from straightness will not harm anyone. But then with each little deviation people get accustomed to be farther and farther away from straightness. Only when they find themselves helpless in the grip of the catastrophe do they repent too late and in vain. It becomes unbearable for the people to tolerate anymore the effect of being in the world and the worldly influences damage the personality to such an extent he becomes restless and has lost all peace of mind, and a point may come he may feel even not to continue his life. It goes to that extent, extreme extent. In fact, we have seen in the life of Girish Chandra Ghosh, one of the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, who before he became the disciple, how he was utterly worldly. That means he had all qualities required for the worldly person, and he was very restless and depressed. He was losing his friends. He himself had admitted that he had committed lot of blunders in the life. And one day he went to Tarakeshwar temple, a famous Lord Shiva temple, Calcutta. He went there and prayed before the Lord, "Oh Lord, I have been reduced to this wretched condition. People say that Lord of the universe takes care of one who prays to him and surrenders to him. Look, I am in this hopeless and terrible condition. Will you please help me? Will you please rise me up from this wretchedness? Is there any hope?" Of course, here in the case of Girish Chandra Ghosh, he went straight to God and began to submit himself. And he had reached a point where he thought he could not do anything. It's only through God's intervention that he could be saved. And this utter hopelessness, this utter feeling of wretchedness became a turning point in the life of Girish Chandra Ghosh, and it is as if his prayer was answered. He came in contact with Sri Ramakrishna, who at once recognized this person in total, and Sri Ramakrishna unconditionally accepted him as his disciple and began to lead him every moment in the righteous path. And Sri Ramakrishna himself later said, on account of his accepting Girish Chandra Ghosh, Sri Ramakrishna had to suffer from cancer. Because all the impurities of this Girish Chandra Ghosh were just taken by Sri Ramakrishna, and he suffered for the sake of Girish Chandra Ghosh. Well, when a person has surrendered, when a person is hankering after help, that's the person who must be attended to immediately. And Sri Ramakrishna did that. But some people, instead of praying to God, they go in other ways, and some people even commit suicide because they can't tolerate anymore. All sorts of things happen. So we are unaware of the divine perfection latent in us. Everyone has that. That's why Swami Vivekananda was very emphatic, and the first message he gave to the people, particularly in the West, when he addressed the Parliament of Religions, each soul is potentially divine. He is revealing the truth. That means he is giving a hope to everyone. Why it is lying potential? Because you are not struggling to develop that potentiality. If you give attention to that, definitely you will become divine. You will realize the divine quality, you will realize your divine nature, and then you will be free from all sufferings. Under the delusion that we are imperfect, we crave for sensations. When the desires get thwarted, we get angry. That is krodha. In our greed to retain and increase our possessions, we turn miserly and uncharitable. That is lobha. The possessions make us arrogant and haughty. That is mada. And we are upset when we find others doing better than ourselves in any field. That is jealousy, matsarya. It can be readily seen that all these complexes spring from the basic lack of the realization that we are genuinely not in need of any of these tantrums. When we know the infinite plenitude of the self that we really are, we shall no longer be the bonded slaves of these negative forces. As Sri Ramakrishna says wittingly, will a man acting the role of a woman in a play long for a husband? He will never forget that he is a male. A knower of the self, likewise, will never forget his innate divinity and long for illusory sense objects that bring misery. Indeed, the test for naturalness, or in Sanskrit it is called sahajata, in a person is his freedom from tension. If you see modern life, how it is full of tension. It is interminable fret and fury. Modern life is a chaotic whirl of tensions in all directions. When we realize the essential stillness of these distracting pulls and seek poise in the profundity of the self, the quality of life undergoes a beatific transformation, and we feel indescribable bliss. The sophistication of modern civilization has distorted our perspectives and made us think that tension constitutes progress. We think we should be always very active, hectic. Then only we feel we are progressing. The more complex and intriguing a situation is, we think the richer life is. But we can never really enjoy happiness in that way. The Upanishads tell us, Shantam upasita. Shantam upasita. Contemplate on the self as tranquility. Realizing the essential tranquility of our self and remaining steady in it is the only tranquilizer that finally works. To be natural is to be tensionless, at peace with one's inmost truth. Let us remember that the world is not something separate from us. We are the world. The world problem is only our problem. The world is called loka, that which is perceived. No one can comprehend reality in its infinitude. Each individual mind makes an abstract of reality according to its capacity, and that is what that the individual considers as the world. The world of one person, therefore, differs necessarily from that of another. What one mind considers good, another considers bad. There is a story. Once Lord Krishna asked Duryodhana to find a good person. The Kaurava went in search of a good person in the whole world, but he could not spot a single person he could consider good. Everybody was bad for him. Next, Lord Krishna asked Dharmaraj, the chief of the Pandavas, to find a wicked person. Then Dharmaraj went in search, but he failed to find a single wicked soul. Duryodhana could not find a single good person. Dharmaraja could not find a single bad person. So Duryodhana's impure mind found only impurity outside, whereas Dharmaraja's pure mind could find only purity everywhere. That means, as our perspective is, so is the world we experience. So we should not simply put forth the argument, there's all round deviations and complexes. Most of the people are dubious and they are crooked, they are corrupt. Under these circumstances, under these surroundings, how can one be straight and simple? People tend to give these arguments. Instead of taking shelter behind the supposed crookedness and artificiality of others, we should improve upon our own straightforwardness and simplicity, in which others too will find a challenge and an inspiration. In fact, the value of the life of a great personage is not so much in what concrete things he is able to achieve as in the glorious example he is able to set for others to follow. So that is a very important point that we should remember. Sri Ramakrishna underlined this again and again when speaking to his devotees. Don't ask if Rama and Krishna were actual historical figures. Ask yourself, if the story of Rama and Krishna stimulates you to nobler ideals and conduct. The incarnations come down only to convince us that God is not an abstract idea. Divinity can be lived even in this human frame. And Sri Ramakrishna is a perfect example. Hence the relevance of God-men like Sri Ramakrishna, whose life, as Swami Vivekananda says, was a living commentary on the Upanishads. Ideas become real only when we live it out. Personalities like Sri Ramakrishna have only one purpose: to convince the doubting world that the great truths of the scriptures are not Arabian Night stories, but facts that can be experientially realized. One can experience it. When Vivekananda put a straight question whether God could be seen, Sri Ramakrishna says, yes, he can be seen. How he could say that? Because Sri Ramakrishna himself has seen God. He has experienced God. And see, he said further, I have experienced God, you can also experience it. And everybody can experience. In order to show to the world that God can be seen while living in this human life, Sri Ramakrishna has shown this in his own life. What is needed is you have to have real aspiration, real hankering to see God. And then everything will follow. So, Sri Ramakrishna is the most glowing example of straightforwardness and naturalness. He was extremely natural, simple, extremely straightforward, which are the basic spiritual qualities. Whenever people would come to Sri Ramakrishna, he would recognize immediately by seeing the face of the person. Many times he would say, look, he looks like a child, very simple, free from ego, free from all bad qualities. And Sri Ramakrishna would immediately give them spiritual instructions. So, for persons like Sri Ramakrishna, honesty was not just the best policy. Truth was the very breath by which he lived. He could not depart even by a hair's breadth from the straight path. Once Sri Ramakrishna promised that he would take a medicine from a devotee. When he went there, he could not meet that particular devotee because he had gone. But then, anyhow, he got that promised medicine from the devotee's servant. But Sri Ramakrishna could not proceed towards Dakshineshwar temple. Whenever he would try to walk through, he would go in a different way, not leading to Dakshineshwar. His mind got confused. The path was blotted out from his vision. Only when he returned to the devotee's place and threw away the medicine, could his eyes see clearly once again the road to Dakshineshwar. Having promised to take the medicine from the devotee, he was not permitted by the Divine Mother to take it from the servant. So Sri Ramakrishna's absorption in straightness was so thorough that he had to adhere to the literal truth and not compromise with it, even unconsciously. It is thrilling to read his own description of the unconditional value he attached to truth. He has said in the Gospel, after my vision of the Divine Mother, I prayed to her, taking a flower in my hands, O Mother, here is thy knowledge, and here is thy ignorance. Take them both, and give me only pure love. Here is thy holiness, and here is thy unholiness. Take them both, O Mother, and give me pure love. Here is thy good, and here is thy evil. Take them both, Mother, and give me pure love. Here is thy righteousness, and here is thy unrighteousness. Take them both, give me only pure love. Sri Ramakrishna says further, I mentioned all this, but I could not say, "Oh mother, here is thy truth, here is thy falsehood, take them both." I didn't say that. I gave up everything at the feet of the mother, but could not bring myself to give up truth. That is why it is said in Kali Yuga, truthfulness is the greatest tapasya. If you practice truthfulness, you will realize God. And Sri Ramakrishna has said that. So, if you are straightforward and truthful, you are sure to see God. In fact, geometry tells us that the shortest distance between 2 points is straight line. The scriptures and God-men likewise assure us that the shortest way to connect ourselves to connect with ultimate is straightforwardness. So, if you are really aspiring to see God in this very life, it means you have to be straightforward. You must know the excellence of straightforwardness, and you must develop that quality in full measure. Then it should be definitely possible for you to see God. If you are straight, then all the spiritual ideas, they work very well with you. When Swami Vivekananda came to Sri Ramakrishna recognized in this person remarkable simplicity and straightforwardness. And immediately Sri Ramakrishna declared, he is my person. He is the person whom I wanted. He is the person qualified to preach to the whole world the glory of Vedanta. Because he was so simple, he was so straightforward, Sri Ramakrishna poured all his spiritual power into him. He transferred literally whatever he has achieved. He transferred everything to Swami Vivekananda because he was the fittest person to have this power so that he can work in this world for the betterment of the humanity. It's because of the purity and the straightforwardness of Vivekananda. He could see the Divine Mother in the image of Kali at Dakshineshwar. When Vivekananda fell into difficult circumstances, when he came to Sri Ramakrishna, praying to him to remove all the problems he was facing in the home, Sri Ramakrishna said, "Why don't you go and pray to the mother? She is there, she is always ready to show her grace and blessings. The only need to be done is you have to go and pray to her. She loves to be prayed upon. She loves to see her children. Why don't you go and see her?" And Sri Ramakrishna said this to Vivekananda because Sri Ramakrishna knew very well that Swami Vivekananda was a very straightforward person and Divine Mother would certainly grant her vision to him. And it really became true. When Sri Ramakrishna is telling, Mother will heed to your prayers, it's a fact. And when Swamiji went to the sanctum sanctorum of Divine Mother, he prostrated before the image and he looked at her. It was not simply an image of clay. It was living embodiment of the Mother Divine. Living embodiment. And it opened up his vision. He began to experience ecstasy. He was in samadhi. We can say it is Savikalpa Samadhi. Swami Vivekananda had Nirvikalpa Samadhi also. He has Savikalpa Samadhi. That means he is having the vision of the Mother in front of him. And because he was so simple, he was pure and straightforward, when the Mother asked him to pray for, Swamiji said, Mother, please grant me Jnana Bhakti, Viveka Vairagya. Grant me knowledge, devotion, dispassion, discrimination. I need nothing. That prayer was granted because she was so thorough, so straightforward, so pure. He had all the spiritual qualities. So it was possible for him to see the Divine Mother. And it is this grace of the Divine Mother that worked through whole life, and he could cross over the ocean. He could come to West. He could deliver the message of Vedanta. All these things was possible on account of the grace of the Divine Mother. And he got the blessings of Holy Mother, Sri Sharda Devi, who was the embodiment of the Divine Mother. Sri Ramakrishna refers to Holy Mother and says, she is Goddess Lakshmi and she is Goddess Knowledge, Goddess of Knowledge. So spiritual wisdom, spiritual prosperity are at her hands. And in this incarnation, she is ready to distribute them liberally to everyone, whomsoever it may be. Whoever comes to her, Mother would grant these things. By the touch of the Mother, by the look of the Mother, by the grace of the Mother, the impurities of the person are simply washed away. He is no more an impure person. So that is the effect of the influence of the holy people. You must come in contact with holy association more often. Then only it's possible to get yourself totally purified. Unless you are purified, it's not possible to see God. So in order even to practice spirituality, you need holy association, you need inspiration. And while doing practice itself, you feel joyful and you'll be able to carry onward in your spiritual path once everything becomes very clear. So, by all means we must avoid crookedness. That means not showing anything outside. By showing you won't be a good devotee. But by cultivating the good qualities you will become a devotee. For example, if you study the Ramayana, there you come across the character Ravan, who was very powerful. But he was devoted too. He did intense tapas and he propitiated Lord Shiva. He wanted whatever he asked for, but he asked for power and glory. He didn't ask for realization of the truth. So because he wanted the worldly prosperity, the glory, worldly power, it was granted. But then he became mad after that. That became the cause of his ruin. He was totally losing himself. His true personality was totally gone, and he became infatuated with lust, and then he carried away Sita. Even though he had most beautiful women in his apartment, still he wanted another. So there was no end for his desires, and he became more and more tension oriented, and he became very egoistic. He thought that nobody could defeat him, and so finally you see how he had to meet with terrible death. The whole race was wiped out on account of his evil action. Some people, they do try to take up spiritual path, but if they don't give proper attention in the initial stage, what is called preparedness, if they don't pay proper attention to the preparedness of the spiritual path, they may slip back, they may roll back, they may fall from the ideal. And we have seen many cases like that. Even though they come and struggle to live this life of spirituality, after some time, probably because of the tremendous inbuilt samskaras of the previous lives, they can't continue this spiritual path, and they go away. They go away, they lead a worldly life, but they become utterly worldly, more worldly than the real worldly person. But after this stage will come when they repent. I was to become a monk. I was in the ashram for a few days, for a few months, but my fate made me like this. So, it is very important to know these factors. Where are we standing? What do we really want? Are we sincere in our aspiration? These questions must be properly attended upon. Once these are sorted out, everything becomes very clear. If you are attached to the world, you lose everything. But turn your mind to God, you get everything. So coming to God is very important, and world is a forum to teach you a lesson of detachment. Being attached, how you feel miserable, that you will come to know in your life. So you must practice the quality of non-attachment, and you must develop love and devotion. That's why Sri Ramakrishna in his prayer has said, "O Mother, give me true love and devotion. That's all that I need. I don't need anything else." If you have that kind of aspiration, you are sure to get the result, and you'll be experiencing God in this very life, and you'll realize the sublime truth. Not only you will be in blissful state, you will be able to share that joy with others also, and you will be calm and steady throughout your remaining part of life. So let us try to practice, understand first the excellence of straightforwardness, and give all attention to cultivate this quality, the quality of simplicity and straightforwardness. Then I am sure you will be able to reach the goal in this human life itself. Thank you very much. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ. May the Divine Spirit protect us, guide us, give us strength and right understanding. May we not hate one another. May love and harmony be with us all. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.
May the Divine Lord protect us. May He nourish us. May we work in harmony with great vigor. May our study be illuminating and fruitful. May we not hate each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.